So here's part two. Since we went through spindle turning in the last video, this one we're going to talk about face turning. So face turning is where you're making bowls, etc. Spindle, this grain is running with the direction of the lathe, and face turning, the grain is running across the axis of the lathe. So this is my bowl blank for your demo here, but we're going to go right into tools this time. So we have a cutoff tool. This is a different one, but does the same thing as the cutoff tool from the last video. And then we have scrapers. So this one here is like the standard scraper that comes with most kits. I've reshaped mine because I like having the long edge out here in order to scrape longer curves and such. And then this is a Robert Sorby scraper, and it's got an adjustable head where you can actually rotate this out and have a flat scraper, or you can have any of these different curves, a point, whatever. So that's real handy to have, especially if you're working in end grain. And then these are the bowl gouges. I've got two different types of grinds. Most of mine, 4 out of the 5 here, have what's called an Ellsworth grind, and it has a very long wing as compared to a very short cup at the end. And these are cut at typically 60 degrees. I think I've got one that I've got set at 70 for harder woods. Yeah, that's this one, the big guy. But that's because I used to make djembes, and they're like huge end grain work when you're doing that. So having that type of that steep of a grind was handy for that. The standard bowl gouge grind is like this, and it's just the I didn't measure the angle on that one. I believe it's also 60. Nope, it is not 60. It is 50. So this is the standard bowl grind is 50 degrees on here. I hope that's focusing well enough for you to see it. And I don't use this one a whole lot, but I do still have it. It's the Ellsworth grind has just become my go-to grind for a bowl gouge. So, but that's up to you. You need to, try out the standard grind, try out the Ellsworth grind. The deal is, though, with the Ellsworth grind, you just about have to have a sharpening jig to sharpen them. And I'll get into that in another video. I'm going to plan to do a video all about sharpening tools and how I do it and how it works out. So, but I've got 3 different sizes. This one is a 1/2 inch. Although the shaft is 5/8, the width of this flute is 1/2 inch, and that's how they measure these. These two are 3/8, and then this one's 1/4. So anyway, let's talk about the blank for a minute. So today, the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to turn the outside of the bowl, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to put it onto a 4-jaw chuck, and I'll turn the inside of the bowl while it's on the 4-jaw chuck. The thing is that you can do this without using a 4-jaw chuck, but it will require that you glue a block onto your bowl blank and then put your faceplate on that, because you don't want to be cutting into your bowl blank and hitting the screws. Okay, so then, like right now, I've got this screwed to what will become the top of the bowl, so this will be all dished out where this is connected. But if you put this on, if you do a glue block, you need to put it on what will become the back of your bowl, and then you actually start by doing the bowl shape, and then you follow it from the outside, and you're going to be cutting in down here, and then you use your parting tool to part it off at the end. So you can do it without the 4-jaw chuck. It's just a little bit more time consuming to save time in the video, because the last video was a lot longer than I intended, but it worked. So we're going to use the 4-jaw chuck. It is also possible to do this without using a faceplate and using only the 4-jaw chuck by drilling a 2-inch diameter Forstner bit hole about 3/8 or so deep, and then setting that on the chuck, and then cutting your outside and then flipping it over and cutting the inside. If you do that, then you don't even have to bother with putting screws into the bowl blank. Now, there was one more thing I wanted to cover before well, that thing got stuck good. One thing I wanted to cover before I put this on here, and I forgot. When you're putting a faceplate onto a blank, do not use the bugle head style screws, like a sheetrock screw or a drywall screw or a deck screw. They can break off in these when they're set up against metal like this. So what you want is a pan head screw, like that little dude. Okay, I don't know how well you can see that again, but anyway, that's the pan head screw. Has that flat area underneath the screw head, and it locks down a lot better. And it has a far less chance of breaking. Still can, but it's a far less chance. Okay, so let's see if I can show you how these things work. Let's see, which one do I want to use? They're all pretty sharp. I think I'll go with that one. Alright, so the first thing I'll do when doing a bowl like this is I'm just going to get it round, right? So let's crank our speed down, turn it on, bring the speed up until we're comfortable. This is a bigger diameter, so I won't have to turn it as high a speed because the number of inches going past out here is going past a lot faster than when it was only about 2 inches in diameter. I'm thinking about 800 for this. There we go. All right, let me make a camera adjustment so I can show you what's going on here. Okay, so the bowl gouge, same thing as with the spindle. You want to rub the bevel and then bring it back down until the edge catches. So you're up here, it's not cutting, so you bring it up until it does start to cut. You can see my chips start to fly right off the bat. So as you get closer and closer to round, you can roll the gouge on its side. And that helps you move across in a straight line. I'm not quite around yet. You can hear that thumping is because I'm hitting flats. So we're going to take another pass. There we go. So on an Ellsworth grind, these long wings out here on the sides are also good scrapers. So you can turn the gouge up on its side and just slightly back from 90 degrees and use it as a scraper on the face to start truing up the face. So now I've got a blank that's smooth all the way around the outside and relatively flat here. We're going to do a little bit more here before we start to work on a shape. So when you're setting up to cut from the face side, you want the center of the piece to be at the cutting point of the tool. So right now I'm actually too high. See how that's, I don't know if I can cut a little circle there. There we go. So I just cut a very small circle right here. And if I had a pencil handy, I do, look at that. So that circle I cut, my cutter right now is sitting right there. I want it to be hitting right in the middle. so that when it rotates it leaves nothing but a little small indentation in the center. So we're going to lower that down and bring that to center. And now when I put that up there and rotate it, all it does is make a little dent in the center. And that makes it very easy to get a nice clean cut all the way across. Okay, so now that we've got that, I need to make an indentation for the four-jaw chuck to hold on to when I get to that point. So I want a 2-inch hole. So I set a pair of dividers to 2 inches. And I'm going to set this up here. We want that to be parallel with the center. I'm going to let one side rub, which is this side over here. And then as the line it creates comes around, I can tell if it's hitting on the other point or not. So I'll know if I'm centered. So that's the line I want right there. So now I can mark that. And that's a 2-inch diameter circle right there. So I can cut a small indentation to let the chuck set into it and grab. I need to back out my... There we go. That's about 1/4 of an inch. It should be plenty. And I'll take out the center part just with the gouge and move back up for that. And there you go. So now you know where your chuck's going to grab, and you know to leave a little bit of a foot outside of that, and then you can shape your bolt. So that's what we'll do next. We'll make the foot. Which is exactly that simple. So now we can go ahead and shape the outside of the bulge the shape that we're looking for. So I'm just doing a very basic style of bowl. I've got a little bit of tear out and such, so that's why we want to use a scraper. The scraper will help eliminate the hairs of the tear out. the scraper, you're taking very, very light cuts, and that's helped eliminate a lot of that tear out. So let me grab some sandpaper real quick. Slow that down just a hair. Voila, not too bad. This one, this wood is the same as the stuff I was using in the last video, and it's rather soft for a hardwood, so the tear out in some areas is just not going to go away for me. But that's okay. This is a demo, not a product. Alright, that's not too bad for 150 grit. Now, ideally, if you're making a bowl like this, what you do is you get the outside all done and actually get the finish on it and everything. Like if you're using boiled linseed oil or a wax paste or whatever you want to use on it. There's a lot of good turning products out there that are specifically made to finish turning wood turning projects. And I can't not recommend any of them, so I'm not going to mention them all. But once you've got this all done and finished, then you flip it over and do the inside. Now, I'm not going to bother finishing it because, like I said, this is a practice piece, or so to speak, demo piece. So what we'll do instead is we're going to take this off. And we're going to unscrew our faceplate. And remove it. We do not need it anymore. Oh, in case y'all are wondering, this small indentation in the center here is because I use a dowel that I made on the lathe that fits that, and then my faceplate can be centered on my piece. It does slide on there. Usually I just put it in through that way and then I can get it snugged into position and screw the faceplate down, and then I'm real close to being at the exact center of the piece. Alright, so now we get the 4-jaw chuck out. And we're using this in expansion, so though you want it to be tight, you don't want to be so tight that you tear the foot off. And I always try to spin it a little bit and kind of look across the top of it here and to see how much it waggles back and forth and make sure that I've got it seated properly. And that's actually doing pretty good, so I'm not going to worry about it. Alright, make sure we're at center, and we are. And let's clean up the front. Okay, so the one time that you're okay using a spindle gouge in a bowl turning situation is if you want to drill a hole in the center. You can get out a drill bit and drill the hole to the depth that you want the bowl to be, and then you work your way down to the bottom of that hole with your bowl gouge. But you can also use a spindle gouge to do that. So if I take the same spindle gouge I was using on the in the last video, on the spindle video, and I put that up to the center and turned a little bit, then I can actually just shove this thing right in here And it will go as deep as I want it to go, and then I can just check to see how far I am. And a little bit more. There we go. Now as you're trying to get this to go in, you have to kind of lean it around a little bit, and at some point it's going to grab and start cutting. It's not like a drill bit where you can just stick it up there and go. A little bit different. Kind of a neat thing to learn though. So now you can take from your hole here, and you want to work from the inside out. You can work from the inside, from the outside in, but you're going to have to do a lot more scraping if you go that way. Let's see if I can demonstrate how that works. Okay, so actually this one, oddly enough, is cutting better going outside in than inside out. You know what? I was thinking wrong. You are supposed to cut from the outside in. It's been a while, guys. Give me a break. I was thinking backwards there. It's all about the grain of the wood and which way it's flowing. You're cutting with the grain when you're going this way. You're cutting against it when you're coming out this way. I don't know why that, for some reason, got turned around in my head. Now with some bowl gouges you can get pretty darn aggressive, and with that one I can, and I just bumped this thing loose, I believe. So I'm going to double check it here. Yep, felt it move. It is a wise thing to check your four-jaw chuck periodically. At some point you're going to be reaching so far out that it's probably a good idea to get your tool rest up inside the bowl a bit so you can be a bit closer to your work. Aha! Had some chip out there. Well, we'll take care of that in a minute. This is some very, very dry wood. It's been drying for about 3 years. Out in all full sun, so. So every now and then you want to stop and check to see if you're getting a consistent thickness on the side. I still need to take out quite a bit right here, a little bit here. This up here is pretty good. Now I'm using that wing to scrape the walls out here. And work down to my final shape before I scrape the inside. See how we're looking there. Still only a little thick down here at the turn of the bottom of the bowl. We're gonna hit it again. Took care of my chip out and made a new one. We can still go more. Oh, that's much better. Now let's see if we can get that edge to clean up. I can live with that. I've got maybe 5/16 to 3/8 of thickness. I'm not going to go for a thin bowl here because this wood would not tolerate that. As you've noticed, it's pretty brittle. What we will do next is go ahead and give it a nice once over. We'll use the sorbet scraper this time. You guys can see it in action. And I think we are ready to sand. So not everyone can do this part because not all lathes will reverse. This one does. And for sanding, I can do that with the 3-jaw chuck, but or 4-jaw chuck. But the if I had this on a if I was trying to cut, then I would unscrew the chuck because this chuck doesn't have a locking tab. My faceplates have the lock on them, but like I said, sanding it just doesn't unthread it. Cutting it could. I think that's pretty good. And there you go. Nice little bowl. So that's the basics of face turning. Not a whole lot to it. It's a little bit different because you have to learn how to manipulate a different type of chisel, or different type of gouge, and you have to decide if you want to go with a standard grind gouge or a Ellsworth grind like this. But either way, it will work, and it is a lot of fun. I have cranked out so many bowls. I mean, in a single day you can make 10, 15, 20 of them if you're pretty good. I've heard of guys that could do more than that. I myself cannot, but I can crank out a 16 by 24 inch djembe in a day, so I guess I do okay. Alright guys, that's gonna be it for the day. I just wanted to do the quick face turning video, and I think in the next one we'll talk about sharpening tools. Thanks again for watching.